trap of comfort and why you don't even notice it. Let me ask you something. Not to impress you, not to scare you, but to wake you up gently and honestly. When was the last time your life felt truly alive? Stretched, raw, growing. Not just comfortable, not just fine, but real, unfiltered, demanding something more from you than autopilot. Because here's the hard truth. Most people aren't suffering. They're sedated, not by drugs, not by crisis, but by the slow, numbing drip of comfort. It doesn't shock you. It doesn't slap you in the face. It doesn't hurt like failure or rejection. No, comfort kills you in a much quieter way. It whispers, "You're doing okay," while quietly robbing you of your potential, your courage, and your clarity. That's what makes it dangerous. We often think the real threat is pain, struggle, or chaos, but sometimes the real enemy is ease. Because ease doesn't challenge you. It doesn't ask anything of you. It just invites you to stay still, to stay safe, to stay the same. And we don't notice it because comfort feels good until it doesn't. It feels good until you wake up one day realizing you've been asleep with your eyes open. You're busy but not fulfilled. You're stable but quietly restless. You're comfortable but slowly decaying inside. That's the trap. And here's what makes it worse. The world applauds your comfort. It tells you you've made it when you stop growing. It calls you responsible when you play it safe. It calls you balanced when you avoid risk. But deep down, you know something's missing. You weren't made to just exist. You were made to evolve. And no one evolves in comfort. The Stoics knew this. They didn't chase suffering, but they didn't run from it either. Because they understood the soul atrophies when it isn't tested. Marcus Aurelius trained his mind daily not to crave softness, but to prepare for discomfort. Seneca warned that a life without hardship is a life without clarity. And here we are, living in climate-controlled rooms, binge-watching strangers' lives, swiping through distractions, calling it relaxation. But it's not rest, it's retreat, it's not recovery, it's resignation. Now don't get me wrong, comfort isn't the villain, it's just misunderstood. It was meant to be a place to return to after the battle. Not the place where you live permanently, hiding from growth. So let me ask you truly, are you alive? Or are you just maintaining a low-friction version of life? Are you being stretched by your days? Or are you just surviving them? Are you choosing the hard things that build you? Or avoiding them in exchange for safety? Because here's the truth I won't sugarcoat. Comfort doesn't kill you with a knife, it kills you with quiet delays, with soft excuses, with another day of "I'll start tomorrow," with another week of waiting for motivation to magically appear. But nothing great ever comes from waiting. Growth doesn't happen in your comfort zone. It happens right outside of it. And this isn't about hustling 24/7 or proving anything to anyone. It's about remembering who you are when no one's watching. It's about reclaiming the version of you that's still buried underneath the layers of avoidance and distraction. So today, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to hold up a mirror and ask, is this the life you meant to live? And if not, then this might be the moment that changes everything. Not with noise, not with force, but with one clear realization. Comfort may feel safe, but over time, it will cost you everything. And when you finally see it, really see it, you'll stop chasing ease, and you'll start building strength, one small choice at a time. You're not tired. You're underused. Let's be honest. We live in a world where almost everyone says they're tired. Tired of working, tired of people, tired of thinking, tired of trying, and maybe that's how you feel too. You wake up groggy, you get through the day, you scroll at night just to distract yourself from how numb you become. You say to yourself, I'm burned out. But what if I told you you're not actually tired? You're underused. That feeling of burnout, it might not be from overwork. It might come from something much quieter and much more dangerous. A life that's not stretching you anymore. See, the mind and body were built to move, to engage, to evolve. They're like muscles, meant to be challenged, stressed, strengthened. And yet, here we are, skipping workouts not because we're exhausted, but because we've forgotten how good it feels to earn our strength, dropping goals halfway through, not because they're impossible, but because they demand more than comfort, spending hours in front of a screen, not because we're learning or growing, but because it's the easiest thing to do when we feel lost. And at the end of the day, we say, I'm so tired. But deep down, maybe what you're feeling isn't fatigue. Maybe it's restlessness. The ache of a soul that knows it was built for more, but hasn't been challenged in a long, long time. There's a quote I love, simple but powerful. Hard work doesn't burn you out. Pointlessness does. And isn't that true? We've all had those days where we worked hard, physically or mentally, but ended the day energized. Not because we avoided effort, but because our effort meant something. Compare that to the days when you coast. No demands, no risks, no purpose. And yet somehow you feel more drained. Why? Because we're not wired for a life of passive consumption. We're wired for purpose, for pursuit, for participation. The Stoics knew this. They didn't believe in numbing the soul through endless rest. They believed in training it through meaningful effort. Marcus Aurelius said, at dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I am rising to do the work of a human being. That's not a motivational slogan. That's a wake-up call. Because when you stop demanding things of yourself, you don't get more rest. You lose momentum. You don't gain peace. You lose meaning. It's not that you need another vacation. It's that you need a reason to wake up. So ask yourself, when was the last time you gave your full energy to something that mattered? When was the last time you ended a day and thought, that was hard, but I feel alive? When did you last feel fully used in the best way possible? If you can't remember, that's not failure. It's a signal that it's time to re-engage, to stop mistaking rest for avoidance, to stop confusing exhaustion with stagnation. Because deep inside you is an untapped reservoir of strength, focus, and creativity. Not waiting for you to rest, but waiting for you to rise. And no, it won't feel good at first. Discomfort never does. But the more you use what's inside you, your gifts, your mind, your discipline, the more energy you create, the more alignment you feel, and the less you'll need to escape your own life. So here's the truth. You don't need to collapse. You need to contribute. You don't need to be rescued. You need to be reignited. You don't need more sleep. You need a reason that gets you out of bed with fire. So stop saying I'm tired, as if that's the full story, because maybe, just maybe, you're not tired, you're underused. What the Stoics knew: discomfort is the path. If you've ever looked at your life and thought, why is this so hard? If you've ever wondered why peace seems to come only after struggle, then you're not broken. You're just waking up to something the Stoics understood thousands of years ago. Discomfort isn't something to avoid. It's something to learn from. We live in a culture obsessed with comfort. We're sold it, programmed into it, and praised for chasing it. A better couch, a smoother schedule, a frictionless life. But the truth is, nothing worth building has ever come from ease. Not character, not clarity, not inner strength. And the Stoics knew this better than anyone. Seneca, the Roman philosopher and statesman, practiced voluntary hardship. He would fast, sleep on hard ground, walk the streets in ragged clothes. Why? To prepare his mind, to remind himself that comfort is not required for courage, to stay rooted in what truly matters, even when the world felt unstable. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, wrote to himself every morning not to escape the weight of leadership, but to remind himself that adversity was not a distraction from life. It was life. He trained his thoughts like a soldier sharpens a blade, and he reminded himself daily, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." And then there's Epictetus, once a slave, later a great teacher. He lived with a permanently injured leg. He had nothing by the world's standards, but his mind was free. He taught that suffering only becomes suffering when you resist it. When you meet discomfort with purpose, it becomes fuel. It becomes your teacher. So let's be honest here. When life gets hard, do you run? Do you numb the pain? Do you scroll, escape, retreat? Or do you lean in, just a little, and ask, what is this moment trying to teach me? Because here's what the Stoics taught over and over again. Don't pray for an easy life. Pray for the strength to endure a hard one. That quote isn't about being cold. It's not about rejecting joy or peace. It's about recognizing that the path to those things runs through discomfort, not around it. Pain is not the problem. Pain is part of the process. Most people avoid pain and end up avoiding growth. They live small, predictable lives. They never risk failing. They never risk feeling fully alive. But those who embrace discomfort, who choose the hard conversation, the daily discipline, the quiet sacrifice, they don't become bitter. They become strong. Because here's the thing, discomfort strips away the noise. It removes the distractions. It forces you to get honest with yourself. Who are you when things don't go your way? Who are you when no one applauds? Who are you when life doesn't bend? That's where your character is revealed. And more importantly, that's where your character is built. The Stoics weren't superhuman. They just refused to run from the fire. They chose to walk through it with intention because they knew what was on the other side. So what if your pain wasn't punishment? What if it was a passage? What if your current discomfort is the exact terrain your soul needs to become who you're meant to be? It's not easy. It's not glamorous, but it's real and it's powerful. So let's shift the question. Instead of asking, how do I escape this discomfort? Try asking, how do I grow through this discomfort? Because discomfort isn't your enemy, it's your instructor. And the more you learn to sit with it, observe it, work with it rather than against it, the more unshakable you become. Not just strong, but wise, grounded, clear, free. The modern brain is addicted to ease. Let me ask you something. Have you noticed how fast you reach for your phone the moment there's silence? Or how often you scroll, not because you're curious, but because your mind just can't sit still? This isn't a moral failing. This is how the modern brain has been trained, and that's the danger. We don't just enjoy ease, we become addicted to it. Here's the truth we don't talk about enough. Your brain is a survival machine, but it's also incredibly lazy. Not because you're weak, but because your brain evolved to conserve energy, to avoid risk, to seek out quick rewards. And in today's world, that means dopamine, the little hit you get when someone likes your post, when the next episode autoplays, when your food gets delivered in 12 minutes, when you dodge that hard conversation because I'll deal with it later. Dopamine isn't evil, it's just a signal, a motivator. But when we constantly chase the easiest source of it, we start rewiring our brains for weakness. Let me break it down. Every time you choose what's comfortable over what's necessary, you're teaching your brain a new habit. Discomfort equals danger. Challenge equals avoid. Effort equals optional. And the longer you live like this, the harder it becomes to tolerate anything difficult. Even small things like waiting in line or hearing criticism start to feel overwhelming. And here's where it gets worse. You don't even realize it's happening because it doesn't break you suddenly. It wears you down slowly. That's how modern comfort works. It doesn't kill your potential with a sword. It weakens it with thousands of small daily escapes. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine two people waking up tomorrow morning. The first one rolls over, hits snooze, checks their phone, scrolls for half an hour. They feel tired, behind, unmotivated, but they don't know why. The second one wakes up, breathes deeply, stretches, drinks water, and journals their intentions for the day. They don't feel amazing, but they feel grounded. They know they've already chosen growth. What's the difference? One chose ease, one chose effort. And those small choices, they don't stay small over weeks, months, years. They shape your entire identity. One becomes emotionally fragile, anxious, and constantly seeking validation. The other becomes resilient, calm under pressure, and clear on who they are. This is not about being perfect. It's about noticing how the path of least resistance is actually training you to become someone you don't respect. Neuroscience confirms this. When you continually seek instant rewards, your brain becomes less capable of long-term focus. You lose discipline. Your emotional tolerance drops. You start reacting to life instead of leading it. And that's why so many people today feel like they're drowning. Not because life got harder, but because their mind got softer. Here's the shift. It's not the world that's weakening you. It's your daily preference for ease. That sounds harsh, but it's a gift if you're ready to change. Because the brain isn't fixed. It's adaptable. And just like you trained it to chase comfort, you can retrain it to value challenge. You can choose to delay gratification, to sit with discomfort, to stop scrolling and start creating, to move when you want to stay still, to speak the truth when silence feels safer. And each time you do, you carve a new groove in your mind. One that says, I don't run from difficulty, I rise to meet it. That's not just Stoic philosophy. That's neuroscience, psychology, and timeless wisdom, all pointing in the same direction. So the next time you feel that twitch to check your phone, pause, breathe. Ask yourself, is this strengthening me or softening me? Because life isn't asking you to be perfect, but it is asking you to choose ease now or strength later, distraction or direction, a quiet death or an earned life. Voluntary discomfort, Stoic habits that build real strength. Let me tell you a quiet truth that most people never discover. The strongest people you know are uncomfortable on purpose. Not because they're masochists, not because they enjoy pain, but because they understand a principle that Stoic philosophers lived by. If you want to be unshaken by life, practice being shaken on your own terms. This is what the Stoics called voluntary discomfort, and it's one of the simplest but most powerful forms of daily strength training. No gym required, no self-help seminar, just you choosing the harder path one small step at a time. Let me give you a few examples. Take a cold shower, not because it's trendy, but because it teaches you how to breathe through resistance, to choose calm and discomfort. It's a daily reminder that you are not ruled by what feels good, or wake up 30 minutes earlier than you want to. That moment when your mind says, just a bit more sleep, is actually the doorway to a new identity. You either train yourself to escape, or you train yourself to rise. Or here's a harder one. Tell someone the truth you've been avoiding. A real, honest conversation. The kind that makes your stomach tighten, but also sets you free. And perhaps the most overlooked habit of all, write. Each morning, open a journal and ask, what will I choose today that strengthens my mind? This isn't about being perfect. It's about building clarity, and clarity is power. These aren't just random self-help hacks. They're spiritual push-ups. Because every time you choose discomfort, deliberately, consciously, you're doing something radical in today's world. You're building character in a culture addicted to convenience. And here's what people get wrong about discipline. They think it's a punishment, a kind of rigid suffering, a cold, lifeless way of living. But that's not discipline. That's control without compassion. Real discipline is a form of love. It's the highest form of self-respect. It says, I believe in the person I'm becoming, so I'm willing to challenge the person I am today. You see, every time you choose the harder road, not because you're forced, but because you can, you become more than you were yesterday. And over time, those small moments stack up. You become the kind of person who doesn't flinch under pressure, who keeps promises to themselves, who earns peace not through escape, but through endurance. The Stoics knew this wasn't just philosophy, it was a lifestyle. Seneca fasted. Marcus Aurelius trained his mind in silence. Epictetus, once a slave, learned to be freer than most kings because he chose inner strength over outer comfort. They weren't chasing applause, they were training for life. And today, your life may not require you to battle armies or rule an empire, but it does require you to battle distraction, addiction, indecision, and emotional chaos. And you can't fight those things with more comfort. You fight them by becoming stronger than them. Voluntary discomfort is the path, not because it feels good, but because it makes you good. It teaches you that pain is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Numbness is. Drifting through life without shape or aim, that's the real danger. So ask yourself, where in your day are you avoiding discomfort when you should be leaning into it? What one small thing could you do today on purpose that would remind you of your strength? Is it turning off your phone for 2 hours? Is it walking in silence instead of escaping into noise? Is it saying no to something that drains you? Whatever it is, start small but start now. Because comfort might keep you alive, but discomfort is what helps you come fully alive. From comfort to clarity, a story of awakening. Let me take you back to a man who was supposed to be broken. His name was James Stockdale, an American naval officer who was shot down during the Vietnam War and held captive for over 7 years. He was beaten, he was tortured, he was isolated, but he didn't crumble. In fact, something remarkable happened in that prison cell. Something that defies what most people believe about hardship. Stockdale didn't just survive, he awakened. You see, before captivity, he was already intelligent, already accomplished. But it wasn't until he was stripped of comfort, safety, and freedom that he discovered something deeper, something no one could take away. I never lost faith in the end of the story, he later said. That sentence alone could rewrite how we see discomfort. Because here's the truth. Most people think hard times destroy you, but in reality, they introduce you to yourself. Let that sink in. Think about your own life for a moment. When did you grow the most? Was it when everything was smooth, predictable, and safe? Or was it during the moments when you had to face something you didn't think you could handle? A heartbreak, a loss, a massive change you didn't ask for. Maybe even just the quiet pain of realizing you've been coasting, settling, living a life of low expectations disguised as balance. That's the real trap of comfort. It doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like just enough. Just enough to avoid change. Just enough to numb the voice in your head that keeps whispering, "You're meant for more than this." And yet many people wait for a wake-up call, a tragedy, a breakdown, a rock bottom, to finally make the shift. But you don't have to wait. You can make that choice now. You can be the one who doesn't run from discomfort, but walks into it with eyes wide open, knowing that what feels like pressure is actually potential being uncovered. Stockdale didn't ask for pain, but he used it, not to become bitter, but to become wise. He credits Stoic philosophy, Epictetus in particular, for helping him survive, for reminding him that while he couldn't control what was done to him, he could always control how he responded. And that's the ultimate shift. That's the moment you go from comfort to clarity, not because you have all the answers, but because you've stopped running. You've stopped distracting yourself with temporary pleasures and started listening to something deeper. That quiet voice that says, it's time. It's time to show up for yourself. It's time to let go of the story that says life should be easy. And write a better one, where you are no longer afraid to be uncomfortable, because that's where the clarity lives. In the stretching, in the struggle, in the shedding of who you were, so who you really are can emerge. So here's the question I leave you with. What hard thing have you been avoiding? That might actually be the key to your transformation. It might not be as dramatic as a prison camp, but it doesn't have to be. It could be that honest conversation you've been delaying, that commitment you've been too afraid to make, that version of yourself you know you could become if you just stop playing it small. Your turning point doesn't come with fanfare. It comes the moment you decide to stop choosing ease over purpose. And when you do, the world won't change overnight, but you will. And that, my friend, is how clarity begins. The final wake-up call. Comfort is a slow death. Let's be honest for a moment. You don't need another motivational video. You don't need someone else telling you to get after it or chase your dreams. What you need is a wake-up call, not a loud one, not a dramatic Hollywood-style awakening, just a quiet, firm realization. Comfort is slowly killing you, not with a heart attack, not with an explosion, but with delay, with softness, with one more day of choosing what's easy over what's essential. And the scariest part, it doesn't even feel like death. It feels like rest. It feels like self-care. It feels like, I'll do it later. But what you're really doing, every time you say no to challenge, to growth, to effort, is saying no to the strongest version of yourself. You're not lazy. You're not broken. But you've been conditioned to fear discomfort, when in reality, it's your only shot at real freedom. Every time you skip the hard conversation, the early alarm, the workout, the decision that scares you, you think you're protecting yourself, but you're not. You're postponing your power. You're pushing your potential just a little further down the road, hoping that someday, maybe, you'll feel ready. But here's the harsh truth the Stoics knew, and life keeps proving. No one is coming. No mentor, no savior, no perfect moment. No one is going to drag you out of your comfort zone and into your greatness. That's your job. And it begins the moment you stop asking, how can I make life easier? And start asking, how can I make myself stronger? That's the Stoic path. Not avoiding pain, but mastering your response to it. Not chasing constant comfort, but building character in the fire of discipline. And you don't have to become some cold, emotionless machine to do that. You just need to stop running from what makes you feel alive. Because what makes you sweat, what makes you uncomfortable, what makes you question your limits, that's where your future is hiding. Comfort feels nice in the moment, but clarity, pride, strength, they come from effort, from friction, from facing what you'd rather avoid. So let me ask you, right here, right now, what have you been avoiding? What conversation, decision, change, or commitment have you been tiptoeing around because it's easier to stay where you are? What would happen if you stopped waiting? If you stood up today, not to be extraordinary, but simply to be honest with yourself? You don't need to be a hero. You don't need to impress anyone, but you do need to face the truth. You're not tired. You're underused, and you don't need more motivation. You need a moment of courage, one choice, one shift, one promise to yourself that says, I will not let comfort write the rest of my life. Because when you look back one day, you won't remember the easy days. You'll remember the ones that stretched you, the ones that demanded more from you, and gave you more in return. Discomfort is where character is forged. Discipline is where freedom is earned. And challenge is where you meet the person you were always meant to become. So if you're ready to trade comfort for clarity, if you're ready to stop avoiding what strengthens you, this is your moment. Subscribe now for more daily reminders to choose growth, not ease. To build a mind, a body, and a life that doesn't flinch when life gets hard. Because hard is where the real ones are born. You don't have to wait for rock bottom. You just have to stop waiting.